Good morning. This is Chair French convening the regular business meeting of the Kansas Corporation Commission for Thursday, April 10th, joined by my colleagues Commissioner Keen and Commissioner Keither. On today's agenda, we have 29 consent agenda items and we have 2 noticed items. We will begin with our consent agenda. Commissioners, you've had the opportunity to review those 29 items. Let me ask at this time if you have any questions, beginning with Commissioner Keither
No question. Thank you.
and Commissioner Keen.
Questions for me either. I'd move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor, please vote aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed, say no. The consent agenda is approved. We now move to our 2 noticed items. Our first is in docket number 24 GBEE 790 STG, and this is a proposed order on motion to modify citing order. Our presenter for this item is Mr. Brian Padot. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning, Commissioners. On May 31st, 2024, Grainbelt Express LLC, or Grainbelt, filed an application under the Kansas Siting Act requesting a siting permit establishing the route for 2 interrelated transmission lines and associated facilities as part of a previously approved alternating current collector system. On August 23rd, 2024, Grainbelt and the Boyds, who are some landowners on the route, submitted a joint motion for approval of the settlement agreement. Grainbelt and the Boyds requested deferring the reasonableness of a alternative line proposed by the Boyds to allow Grainbelt to develop a routing analysis comparing the 2 routes and provide notice to landowners that would be impacted by the Boyd's alternative route and additional procedures such as, if necessary, like another public hearing and another hearing on the Boyd alternative. On September 26, 2024, the Commission issued its order granting a siting permit with conditions, finding the proposed transmission line is necessary, the proposed route for the Buckland Dodge City line and the Meade line, subject to bifurcation of that Boyd alternative, were reasonable routes. The order also conditioned the siting permit on Grainbelt submitting the routing analysis comparing the bifurcated route options to the Commission. Then on March 14th, 2025, Grainbelt filed a motion to modify the siting order, explaining that it had developed a shorter route that would no longer impact the Boyd's land. The motion to modify the siting order would not affect the previously approved Buckland Dodge City line. Since the shortened route does not impact any new landowners, Grainbelt explains that no additional notice is required under KSA 661178. The Commission agrees. Grainbelt explains the shortened Meade route does not alter the Commission's prior finding that the Meade line is necessary and the location is reasonable. And Grainbelt also requests the Commission strike the conditions in the siting order that requires it to submit a new routing analysis and new procedural schedule to determine whether the Boyd alternative or the original route is the best route. This order finds that based on the uncontroverted evidence in the record, the shortened Meade line would provide benefits to electric customers both inside and outside of Kansas and economic development benefits in Kansas, and that the shortened Meade line is necessary. KSA 661180 also requires the Commission to determine the location of the proposed line is reasonable. Reducing the length of the line and the overall impact of the line represents an improvement over the originally proposed line. And therefore, this order finds the shortened Meade line is reasonable. Since the Commission in this order is approving the shortened Meade line as reasonable and necessary, there's no need for Grainbelt to submit additional routing analysis comparing with the Boyd alternative to the original proposed Mead line. Likewise, there's no need for a new procedural schedule, as no further proceedings are necessary. Thus, the commission removes the conditions contained in paragraphs 21 of both the order granting citing permit and the nunc of that order. So essentially, the motion is approved. With that, I'm available for questions.
All right, thank you, Brian, for that description. Are there any questions on this item, beginning with Commissioner Keither?
No questions, but thank Grainbelt for their good work there.
And Commissioner Keen?
No questions from me either. Thank you, Brian. I think the level of granularity in your overview was really quite helpful for perspective. So I join the chair in thanking you for that. I'd move approval of the order.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the order as described in this docket. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. The order is approved. We now move to our second and final noticed item today. This is in docket number 25, EKCE 294 RTS, and this is a proposed order on Kansas Industrial Consumers petition for intervention. Again, our presenter is Mr. Brian Padilla. Go ahead, Brian.
Yes, thank you. In Evergy, Kansas Central's pending rate case, the Kansas Industrial Consumer Group, or KIC, filed a petition to intervene, citing decades of experience in advocacy of good energy policy, shareholder outreach, and community engagement. The petition states that KIC represents the interests of commercial, industrial, and other large volume users of energy, but does not identify any specific entities that it represents. Evergy objects to KIC's failure to identify any of its members that take service from Evergy, and Evergy explains that it would drop its objection if KIC identified members that are both Evergy customers and that are participating in this docket through KIC. In KIC's reply, it misinterprets the commission's decision to grant intervention to the Data Center Coalition in the 25 EKME 315 TAR docket. KIC erroneously states that the commission did not require the Data Center Coalition to identify its members before being granted intervention, where in fact, in that docket, the Data Center Coalition did identify all 35 of its members in a footnote. Similarly, in docket number 18 KCPE 480 RTS, the 18480 docket, which was a KCP&L rate case, the commission initially denied intervention to American Fuel and Petrochemical Manufacturers, Magellan Pipeline Company, and Petroleum Marketer and Convenience Association of Kansas. Those denials were based on failing to allege its members were KCP&L customers. And I'm skipping some detail, but the order notes that KIC is similarly situated to those groups in the 18480 docket, as it has historically been an umbrella group for specific actual Evergy corporate customers to advocate for their private interests. And if KIC does intend to function as an umbrella group for private corporate interests, it is required to identify those members to qualify for intervention. And again, this order explains that consistent with that 18480 docket, KIC is required to identify with specificity which of its members it claims are Evergy Kansas Central customers and are planning on participating under the KIC with umbrella. Absent this information, the commission's unable to conclude if any KIC members have a valid interest that would satisfy the requirements of the intervention statutes. Therefore, this order denies the petition to intervene, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Brian. Are there any questions on this item, beginning again with Commissioner Keither
No questions.
and Commissioner Keen?
Brief overview question for you, Brian, going back to the narrative overview that you provided. If I understand it correctly, that what you're saying here is pursuant to the order, notwithstanding the fact that KIC may in the past have represented any number of clients who may be within the purview of the geographic areas covered by this docket. The remedy here is for KIC to identify, in this instance, clients it represents who have an interest in this docket if they wish to have intervention. Is that a fair summary of what you've said?
Yes, it's a fair summary, and I don't think this is a particularly burdensome order. I think they could easily amend a petition or file a new petition to intervene that identifies Evergy, Kansas central customers that plan to participate through KIC in this docket.
Thank you for that overview. I would move approval of the order.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the order as Mr. Pedotin has described it. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. The order is approved. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, commissioners.
With that, we have come to the conclusion of all the items noticed on today's business meeting agenda. If there's nothing further to come before us this morning, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
A motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, please vote aye.
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 Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you all.